Indigenous peoples in the Great Lakes have practiced gathering wild rice, or Manoomin, for generations, evidenced by the archaeological record, Indigenous knowledge, and continuing tradition. The plant's natural properties, as well as the naturally available materials for harvesting and processing, impacted the way humans interacted with this plant over thousands of years. The traditional process has several steps, all shaped by the rice's natural properties. To begin, two harvesters go out in a watercraft. One person manages the boat, while the other uses a pair of lightweight sticks, called knockers, to gently bend the flexible stalk and tap, or knock, the grain into the boat. Once they've collected the grain from the plants, it must be processed into a usable form. This involves parching the rice to dry it and loosen the husk, then treading or jigging it to remove the husk, and finally winnowing the husks away. The rice's natural capacity for drying allowed them to capture the abundance of one season and save it for another. Wild rice requires shallow, nutrient-rich, and very clear water with a gentle current. It also grows best in quiet, sheltered places. The Ojibwe incorporated Manoomin into their cultural practices and life ways in many ways. This included stories about cultural heroes, medicinal practices, feast foods, as well as establishing a system for the ricing camps and selecting ricing chiefs and committees. At the same time, human practices impacted the plant. The plant's fragile stalk and easily detachable grains meant that some grains inevitably fell into the water during the harvesting process. In this way, Indigenous cultural practice helped ensure next year's crop, as well as attract waterfowl, which became another food source. Humans also occasionally removed weeds that prevented sun from reaching the rice. However, the plant's natural properties also limit how humans can interact with it. The intrusion of farming techniques imported from Western Europe and use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides and the damming of waterways have all negatively impacted wild rice populations and grain production. Today, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people harvest wild rice, and it's become a much sought-after delicacy. Groups like the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, an organization that represents 11 Ojibwe tribes who reserved hunting, fishing, and gathering rights in treaties with the United States federal government, focus on the preservation and enhancement of wild rice. Their work includes annual surveys of rice beds and reseeding as needed. They're also preparing a wild rice management plan. In this way, Indigenous groups can maintain cultural continuity and initiate younger generations into these practices so that the cycle can continue.